Hi, welcome back. In previous tutorial, we created the project with the name Hibernate Session Factory Creation, in which we had to code for obtaining the Session Factory instance. Now for that, we first coded pom.xml where we had given all the dependencies required for our project. Since we are using Maven project, we need to give the dependencies. If you are using Java project, then you can add the jar files to your class path rather than giving the dependencies in pom.xml, because Java project will not have this pom.xml file. It is associated with the Maven project. So in our pom.xml, we had given two dependencies, one for our connector jar file which is required for JDBC connection, and the second one is the Hibernate jar file dependencies. So according to the jar files that you are using, you need to specify the version of this MySQL connector and the version of the Hibernate jar files. And then we have done the coding for hibernate.cfg.xml file. In this hibernate.cfg.xml file, we have given different properties, like we had given the driver class which is required, and then URL and username, password, and the dialect required. We can give some other properties as well that we will discuss later on in subsequent tutorials. Now for this particular example, we need only these properties to be given in hibernate.cfg.xml file, and this file is located under source main resources. Now in this tutorial, we are going to write the utility class in which we will obtain the session factory instance. So for that, we will create our new class in src main java folder. So here we will go for new class, and we will give the name of our class as Hibernate utility, and we can specify it under a package com.tutorials.utility, and then simply we will click on finish. Now in this class, we are going to write one static block within which we will put the code for obtaining the session factory. Now why we are writing the static block? Because static block will be executed at the time of class loading itself, and here we will write the code for creating the singleton instance of session factory. Because session factory is very expensive, so it should be created only once, and then that object only should be used throughout your application. So we will put the code in session factory, and there we will check first whether it has been already created or not. If it has not been created so far, then only we will execute the code for session factory creation. Otherwise, the existing object will be returned by a reference. So here we will first declare the required variables. We need here two variables, one for standard service registry and one for session factory. So let us code for that. So here we will give private static, and then we need standard service registry, and then we will give a reference variable for this. So, and the second variable that we need to declare is session factory. So again we will make it private static. We are declaring these member as static as we are going to use them in the static block. So here we will give session factory. Now the code that we are going to put is the code which is required in Hibernate 5 for obtaining the session factory. So here we will start with our static block. Now here we will first check whether the session factory is null. Only then we will instantiate the session factory. So we will put our if statement here. If session factory is equal to null, then what we need to do, first of all, we need to create standard service registry So we will give the code for create standard service registry. So we will give here standard service registry and then an instance variable which we have declared. That reference variable we will use over here, and here we will give new and the call to the method standard service registry builder. So here we will give standard service registry builder. This is method, and then we need to call the configure method, and then we need to call build method. Okay, so we need to import this as well. So here I guess we have done some spelling mistake, so it should be standard service registry builder. Okay, so now what we have to do, after obtaining this standard service registry instance, we need to get the metadata sources. So we will put the code for metadata sources. Now here for configure method, we haven't given any parameter, but if we have given some other name for our this configuration file, which is hibernate.cfg.xml, so we need to pass that as a parameter. But since we have taken the default name only, we need not to pass it as a parameter to our configure method. So now we will give the code for, that is, we will create metadata sources. So here we will give metadata sources and then a reference variable, and then we will give new metadata sources. Standard service registry will be passed as a parameter to this, and then we will give metadata sources, and here we need to pass the instance of standard service registry. So we will copy and put it here. This D should be in lowercase. And then we need to import it. So after creating the metadata sources, we need to create the metadata. So we will give the code for that. And here we need to make use of metadata sources instance which we have created. So we will give equals metadata sources dot get metadata builder, get metadata builder, and then we will call the build method. So after obtaining metadata, we will put the code for obtaining session factory. So here then we will give create session factory. And we will make use of this reference variable which we have already declared. And here we will give metadata instance that we have created. Using that, we will call the method get session factory and get session factory builder method, sorry, and then we will call the build method. So this is how we can obtain the session factory instance in Hibernate 5. What we can do, we can enclose our code with try catch. So here we can give surround with try catch block. Fine. Now here, if any exception occurs, this catch block is going to be executed. Now within this catch block, we can put the code for destroying this standard service registry by calling the destroy method. So here we will first check if this standard service registry is not equal to null. So we will simply copy and here we will give, if it is not equal to null, then we will call the destroy method from standard service registry builder. Since this is static method, we can call it directly with the class name. So we will give standard service registry builder dot destroy, and then we need to pass the standard service registry instance to it. So we will copy this and pass it here. So we are done with the coding of our static block. We had first instantiated standard service registry, and then we had created metadata sources. Then we have created metadata. We can change it to lower D. And then we are obtaining the session factory instance finally. Now what we will do, we will write a utility method which will return the instance of this session factory. So for that, we will put our method here. So we will give the utility method to return session factory. Return session factory. So we will write our method as public and static. And the return type would be session factory, and let the name of our method be get session factory. So here we will give session factory. And then we can simply return this variable session factory. So here we will give return session factory. So we are done with the code required for our utility class, in which we have given the static block which will be executed at the time of class loading, and then we have given a method which can be called in any application to obtain the session factory. Now in next tutorial we will write our client program in which we will make use of this session factory instance, and then we will fire one SQL query. Thank you for watching this tutorial.